My husband, Henry, left Leo and me to enjoy a month of blissful freedom abroad with his secretary, Brittany. Today, they finally returned, expecting to walk right back into my home. I apologize, sir, but your residency access has been revoked. The guard's voice, devoid of emotion, completely shattered Henry's smugness. He stared at me in shock, his eyes wide with disbelief. This was just the first welcome home gift I had prepared for him. The evening air still carried the day's warmth, mingled with the sweet, cloying scent of jasmine from the neighborhood garden. I had just finished bathing Leo, and he was now in his blue dinosaur pajamas, lying on the living room rug, intently piecing together a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle of the night sky. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city's neon lights slowly flickered on, like an overturned jewelry box, glittering and cold. Everything was perfectly serene. Until a familiar, deliberately amplified burst of laughter from outside my door shattered the tranquility. It was Henry, my husband, back again. I didn't even need to look through the peephole to imagine him. He would surely be wearing his favorite Armani shirt, with his Patek watch on his wrist, a symbol of his successful man status, and his young, beautiful secretary, Brittany, leaning close beside him. They looked like celebrities fresh off a red carpet, practically begging the world to witness their happiness and love. Sure enough, the intercom rang. I didn't move. Leo looked up, asking in his sweet, childlike voice, "Mommy, is Dad back?" I stroked his head, my voice soft. "Leo, keep working on your puzzle. Mommy will go see." The intercom stubbornly kept ringing. I walked to the entryway and pressed the answer button. On the screen, Henry's smug face appeared clearly. He had his arm around Brittany's waist, and he raised an eyebrow at the camera, his tone oozing with boastfulness. "Honey, open the door. We're back, and I brought you a gift." Britton. Y leaned closer, her overly made-up face plastered with a sickly sweet smile. "That's right, Sophia. Henry picked out a bag for you, the latest model." I watched the couple on the screen with a blank expression. On the suitcases behind them, a Maldives airline tag was still visible. A month. A whole month. He had used our marital assets to take this woman to that place, renowned as a honeymoon paradise, to live in blissful extravagance. And I, in turn, had used that month to meticulously prepare a grand welcome home ceremony for him. I said nothing, simply disconnecting the intercom. Outside the door, Henry seemed to freeze for a moment, followed by impatient knocking. "Sophia, what the hell are you doing? Open the door." I leisurely walked to the living room, picked up my phone, and sent a text message to the head of building security. "Mr. Henry and a lady are at the door. Proceed as planned." Soon, the knocking stopped, replaced by a commotion and Henry's raised shouts of anger. Folding my arms, I walked to the door and quietly watched the unfolding drama through the peephole. Henry was trying to swipe his access card, but the access system repeatedly emitted an irritating beep-beep, and the screen coldly displayed 4 words, "Access." He angrily slapped the access system, like a trapped beast in a cage. 2 uniformed guards expressionlessly stood in front of him. One was the head of building security, who repeated my instructions in a businesslike tone, devoid of any personal emotion. "I apologize, sir, but your residency access has been revoked." "Revoked access? I'm the homeowner. This is my home. By what right do you revoke my access?" Henry's voice was distorted with fury as he pointed a finger at the guard's nose, spitting with rage. Brittany had likely never seen him so out of control. She looked terrified, hiding behind him and clutching his jacket hem. I could almost smell her cheap, pungent perfume through the door. Neighbors were already peering out, pointing and whispering about them. I knew the moment was right. I pulled open the door, still in my slightly faded cotton pajamas, my hair loosely tied up. I appeared calmly at the doorway, holding Leo, who had been disturbed by the commotion. The light from the doorway fell on my face, and I could feel Henry's gaze shift from anger to shock, then to a flicker of barely perceptible panic. He probably hadn't expected that after a month, the woman who once obeyed his every word would now have such a cold gaze. "Sophia, you finally came out. You let these goons block me? Are you insane?" Henry roared, trying to rush towards me. The head of building security and his team stood like a solid wall, firmly blocking my path. "Henry," I said, my voice low but clear enough for everyone present to hear, "you've made 2 mistakes." I paused, looking at his face, flushed red with anger. "First, you are not the homeowner. The property title for this house has always been, and only ever will be, in my name alone. Second," I curled my lips into a faint, sarcastic smile, "you ceased to be worthy of living here a long time ago." Henry was completely stunned. He stared at me in disbelief. What did you say? This house. My parents bought this house for me in full before we were married. Don't you know whose name is on the property title? Or have you lived too comfortably all these years, leading you to mistakenly believe this is your home too? My words pierced his pride like a precisely aimed knife. His face cycled through shades of red, then white, then green, a truly spectacular display. You vicious woman. Henry spat, furious. You're playing games with me. I scoffed. Compared to you absconding with company funds and taking your mistress abroad for a month of lavish spending, what's my little game in comparison? I took out my phone, opened the photo album, and turned the screen towards him, and then towards the nosy neighbors. The screen displayed intimate photos of him and Brittany, kissing on the beach, embracing on a yacht, laughing and playing on a hotel bed. Each one was like a resounding slap, sharply landing on his face. A wave of unrestrained gasps and murmurs spread through the crowd. Henry's face turned an ashen gray. And just a friendly reminder, I said, putting away my phone and adding casually, the divorce papers and digital copies of these photos were sent to your email 5 minutes ago. Leaving with nothing is your only option. Henry completely lost it. He charged at the guards like a mad bull, bellowing, Sophia, you bitch. The guards worked together to subdue him, and the scene became chaotic for a moment. Brittany, trembling with fright nearby, started to wail, as if she were the one who had suffered a great injustice. I watched the farce before me with complete indifference. I held Leo, turned, and closed the door. The heavy wooden door blocked out all the commotion from outside. Outside, Henry's hysterical curses, Brittany's cries, and the neighbors' whispers intertwined into a cacophony. Inside the door, there was a deathly silence. I leaned against the door, feeling my heart beat steadily and strongly in my chest. No anger, no sadness, not even a trace of vengeful satisfaction. Only the calm of resolution. Leo, in my arms, softly asked, Mommy, why isn't Dad coming in? Does he not want us anymore? I bent down and kissed his forehead, saying gently, it's not that Dad doesn't want us, it's that Mommy doesn't want him anymore. From now on, it'll just be the two of us. Are you scared, Leo? Leo nodded, seemingly understanding yet not, and then wrapped his small arms tightly around my neck. No, I'm not scared. Leo will protect Mommy. At that moment, my eyes finally welled up a little. Yes, for my child, I had to become unbreakable. This war had only just begun. Henry and Brittany were eventually driven away by the neighbors' pointing fingers and the guards' firm stance, leaving the neighborhood in disgrace. Dragging their suitcases. I guessed they would go to a hotel. After all, what Henry cared about most was his pathetic dignity. Sure enough, less than an hour later, his phone call came. I looked at the ironic husband displayed on the screen, didn't hesitate to mute it, and casually tossed my phone onto the sofa. The phone tirelessly lit up and dimmed, mirroring his current agitated state. I couldn't be bothered. I walked to the wine cabinet and poured myself a glass of wine. This bottle was one Henry had brought back from France last time, supposedly to celebrate our 7th wedding anniversary. Thinking about it now, it was truly laughable. Holding the wine glass, I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the endless stream of traffic outside. The phone finally fell silent. I took a sip of wine, the spicy liquid slid down my throat, leaving a bitter aftertaste. Then I dialed another number. Miss Sarah, it's me. A calm, professional female voice came from the other end of the line. Good evening, Miss Sophia. It seems Mr. Henry has received your welcome gift. Yes, I said, looking at my blurred reflection on the glass. He should soon discover that was just the appetizer. Please rest assured, Miss Sarah's tone was reassuringly professional. As per your instructions, all preservation procedures for marital assets became effective this morning. All bank accounts, equity, and several properties we uncovered under Henry's personal name and his controlled company have been frozen by the court. So, he's now penniless. Miss Sarah provided the precise answer. Not only that, his unauthorized appropriation of $2 million in company funds for personal spending constitutes embezzlement. I have already submitted the relevant evidence, and the Financial Crimes Unit should be contacting him soon. I took a deep breath. The huge stone that had weighed on my chest for 7 years finally seemed to loosen a bit. Thank you, Miss Sarah. It's my job. Miss Sophia. You've handled this extremely well, calmly and decisively. Hanging up the phone, I drained the wine in my glass. In my mind, I saw myself from 7 years ago. The naive girl at her wedding, believing she was marrying for love. For him, I gave up a graduate school acceptance from a prestigious university, sacrificed a promising HR manager position, and willingly devoted myself to being a homemaker, managing the household, raising our child, and respecting his parents, becoming the quiet, supportive wife behind him. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. Just 6 months ago, I stumbled upon his text messages with Brittany. Words like babe, darling, miss you, along with explicit flirting and indecent photos, doused me from head to toe like a bucket of ice water. In that moment, I didn't cry or throw a tantrum. I simply calmly turned off his phone, as if nothing had happened. Because I knew that to a man who no longer loves you, your tears are the cheapest thing. From that day on, I began to pave a path for myself and my child. I secretly contacted a law school classmate from university, and through his recommendation, found Miss Sarah, a lawyer specializing in divorce cases. I started collecting evidence of his infidelity, documenting every abnormal expense, and investigating the properties and investments he secretly acquired behind my back. I even exploited his stereotypical view of me as meek and harmless, allowing him, without any suspicion, to hand over some of the company's decision-making power to me. He thought I was just a clueless homemaker, unaware that my college major was business management. The month he spent on a honeymoon trip with his mistress was the perfect timing for me to close my net. My phone vibrated again. This time, it was a text message from Henry. Sophia, you froze all my bank cards? What exactly are you trying to do? Even through the screen, I could feel his furious frustration. I smiled and leisurely replied, just wait and see. Then, I logged into a secondary social media account I hadn't used in a long time. I posted the carefully selected honeymoon photos of Henry and Brittany, along with the caption I had already prepared. Mr. Henry, a high-ranking executive at a certain publicly traded company, abandoning his wife who bore his children for a true love honeymoon with his beautiful mistress. The joy of the wealthy, so simple and unpretentious. I even specifically tagged a few local gossip sites. After doing all this, I turned off my phone and walked into the bedroom. Leo was already asleep, a sweet smile still on his small face. I leaned down and kissed him, a long-lost sense of ease washing over me. The public opinion spread faster than I had imagined. The next morning, hashtags like #executive cheats with secretary and #scumbag and mistress honeymoon trip had already quietly crept up the local trending topics. While it didn't cause a huge splash, it was enough to unleash a tsunami within Henry's small social circle. I refreshed my phone while preparing breakfast for Leo. My secondary social media account already had hundreds of comments. There were comments condemning the scumbag and mistress, sympathizing with the original wife, and even anonymous users claiming to be Henry's colleagues who leaked more explosive information. I've always known something was off with Henry and Brittany. They were constantly flirting in the office. Did they think we were blind? Brittany only got ahead because of her looks, didn't she? Her work performance is terrible. She relies entirely on Henry's backing. Feel bad for Henry's wife. I heard she's a very gentle homemaker who gave up her career for him, only for him to turn into an ungrateful wolf. I read through the comments, a cold smile playing on my lips. Soon after, Miss Sarah's call came in. Miss Sophia, Henry's company board of directors is holding an emergency meeting at 9 this morning. The agenda concerns his personal conduct and the all-edged embezzlement. He must be in a complete panic right now. As expected, I said, placing the fried eggs on Leo's plate, a cold smile touching my lips. For someone like him, reputation and status are everything. Now that both are in jeopardy, it's no wonder he's frantic. Also, Miss Sarah's voice carried a hint of amusement. You might need to mentally prepare for his mother's call. I raised an eyebrow, feeling no ripple of emotion. She called? Half an hour ago, she called my law firm, yelling insults at me, calling me an unethical lawyer and accusing me of sowing discord in your marriage. She threatened to sue me, Miss Sarah said, a touch of playful mockery in her tone. I told her she was welcome to sue, that it would be a good opportunity for her to learn about the newly enacted civil. I couldn't help but let out a soft laugh. Eleanor was as domineering and unreasonable as ever. Well, let her continue to live in her own world. In the afternoon, I took Leo to his favorite amusement park. The sun was beautiful, warm on our skin. Leo sat on the carousel, giggling merrily, his clear laughter echoing in the air. I stood outside the railing, watching his innocent smile, feeling that everything I had done was worth it. Just then, my phone vibrated. It was an anonymous text message. I opened it to find several screenshots of spending records. A top-tier underwater restaurant in Maldives, luxury boutiques on the Champs-Élysées in Paris, a private ski resort in Switzerland. Each transaction represented a shocking amount of money. The sender's number was unfamiliar, but I could guess who it was. Probably someone in Henry's company who had disliked him for a long time. I forwarded these screenshots to Miss Sarah with one click. The caption read, "New evidence, please handle it." Miss Sarah replied immediately, "Received." These are sufficient to prove he was maliciously transferring and squandering marital assets during the marriage. He will be even more disadvantaged. Ed in court. I put away my phone, watched Leo on the carousel, and waved at him. In the sunlight, his smile was the most beautiful sight I had ever seen. Henry's situation was worse than I had imagined. The company had already decided to put him on indefinite suspension and launched an internal investigation. This was undoubtedly a crippling blow, cutting off his main source of income. Even worse, his bank cards were frozen, meaning he had completely lost the financial means to maintain his respectable lifestyle. He had already slunk away with Brittany from the Ritz-Carlton to a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. The drastic fall from heaven to hell was enough to completely break him. In the evening, I returned home, exhausted, with Leo. As soon as I put down my bag, his calls came like a storm, and text messages poured in one after another. From initial threats and curses to later questions and pleas, he tried every tactic imaginable. "Sophia, do you have to be so ruthless? Considering our years together and the bond we shared, can't you just give me a break? Honey, I was wrong, it was all Brittany, that manipulative woman who seduced me. Please, can you give me another chance? Where's Leo? I want to see my son, let me see him." I looked at these messages and felt only disgust. I simply and decisively blocked his number. The next morning, I received the latest news from Miss Sarah. "Miss Sophia, Henry is trying to sell an offshore trust fund under his name, valued at approximately $3 million. He invested this money under the company's name without your knowledge." My heart tightened. I didn't know about this money. It seemed he had quite a few hidden tricks up his sleeve. "Can we stop him?" "Of course," Miss Sarah said confidently. "We anticipated his moves. Our freeze order reached the overseas trustee before he could even contact them. He can't touch a single cent now." "Well done." I could almost picture Henry's twisted, despairing face upon hearing that news. Around noon, the neighborhood security guard called me. "Miss Sophia, Mr. Henry is back again, causing a disturbance at the entrance, saying he wants to see you and the child. Call the police directly," I uttered coldly. "Understood." I walked to the window, pulled back a corner of the curtain, and coldly watched the commotion downstairs. Henry was throwing a tantrum like a madman at the neighborhood entrance, attracting many curious neighbors. His secretary, Brittany, stood by, looking at him with utter disgust, as if he were a pile of trash. She probably hadn't expected that the successful man who once took her to exclusive venues and showered her with money would fall to such a low point. Soon, a police car arrived, sirens blaring. After their warnings proved ineffective, the police immediately subdued Henry, who was still throwing a tantrum, and took him into the police car on charges of disturbing the peace. He was escorted by 2 officers, his hands cuffed behind his back, and awkwardly shoved into the car. In that moment, he seemed to sense my gaze, abruptly raising his head and looking in my direction. His eyes were filled with venomous resentment and stubborn defiance. I met his gaze calmly, then slowly drew the curtains. It was all over. I watched the aftermath unfold on my home surveillance system. After the police left, Brittany didn't wait around. Instead, she quickly hailed a taxi and left without a backward glance. Her destination was the highway to the airport. I guessed she had taken advantage of Henry's short detention to go back to the motel, snatched what little cash he had left, and some designer watches and jewelry he had sold to get cash. This woman was more pragmatic and ruthless than I had imagined. But for me, this was a good thing. A messy fight between 2 greedy people. I couldn't be bothered with their feuds and emotional entanglements. That evening, I took Leo to the supermarket. Leo was very well behaved. He sat in the shopping cart, his small hands tightly gripping the handle, and when he saw me pick up many items, he would proactively help me organize them. "Mommy, buy this," he said, pointing to a family-sized tub of ice cream on the shelf, his eyes sparkling. "Okay, we'll buy this," I said with a smile, placing it in the shopping cart. Henry used to always say ice cream was bad for children and forbade me from buying it. Now, no one could dictate our lives anymore. While checking out, my phone received an email. It was the final outcome from Miss Sarah. "Miss Sophia, by resolution of the board of directors, Henry has been officially dismissed from the company. Concurrently, the company's legal department will file a lawsuit regarding his embezzlement, seeking to recover the $2 million in misappropriated funds and demanding compensation for all economic losses incurred by the company. Preliminary estimates indicate the compensation amount will be no less than $5 million. $5 million. Adding that to his previously frozen assets, he was not only left with nothing but also burdened with immense debt. I turned off my phone, looking at the various snacks Leo had chosen in the shopping cart, and the big tub of ice cream, my heart perfectly calm. This was the fate he deserved. Later, the custody battle proceeded as scheduled. It was Henry's and my first formal meeting since the divorce scandal. He had lost weight and looked much more haggard, with sunken eyes and a shadowy stubble on his chin. Gone was his former youthful vigor. When he saw me, his eyes first flashed with a hint of venomous resentment, but it was quickly replaced by a deliberately feigned sadness. In court, he went to great lengths to portray himself as a doting father, blinded by love, now deeply remorseful and yearning to return to his family. He accused me of being ruthless and deliberately destroying his career and reputation, even preventing him from seeing his own son. My lawyer presented irrefutable evidence, including proof of Henry's infidelity, his minimal call records with Leo, the stark contrast between the cheap gifts he bought for Leo and the luxury items he bought for his mistress, and text messages showing his repeated refusal to pay child support. Faced with such overwhelming evidence, Henry was left speechless. Subsequently, my mother entered the courtroom, leading Leo. Faced with the judge's questions, Leo was a little uneasy but still told the truth. Dad was very busy with work and rarely spent time with him, and he had seen Dad going out with a pretty auntie. His child's innocent words inadvertently revealed Henry's facade of a doting father. In the public gallery, there was an uncontrollable uproar and gasps. Everyone's gaze shot like daggers at the mortified man. Henry slumped onto the defendant's bench, his face ashen. The final verdict was without suspense. Child custody was awarded to me. Henry was required to pay all past due child support in a lump sum, and from the following month, he would pay 15,000 yuan in child support monthly until Leo turns 18. He was granted visitation rights, but these visits had to be supervised by me. The moment the verdict was announced, Henry lost control in court. He pointed at the judge, then at me, roaring wildly, "You're all in collusion within the legal system. You've all been bought off by this vicious woman." 2 court officers quickly stepped forward, subdued him, and forcibly dragged him out of the courtroom. I rushed over and held Leo tightly. I could feel his small body still trembling slightly. My heart felt like it was being squeezed hard by a hand. It ached intensely. "I'm sorry, my child, for putting you through this. But it was necessary. If I didn't completely crush him, he would forever cling to us." Stepping out of the court, the entrance was already swarming with reporters who had caught wind of the news. I ignored them, simply wrapping Leo tightly in my jacket and shielding him. With the help of Ms. Sarah and her assistant, I struggled to push through the crowd and got into a car that was already waiting. The car pulled away, leaving the commotion and camera flashes far behind. I saw Henry being escorted by several court officers, emerging disgracefully from another exit. He covered his face with his hand, trying to avoid the reporters' cameras, his image utterly ruined. Miss Sarah handed me a bottle of water. "It's over. He has completely lost any chance of a comeback." I twisted open the cap and took a sip. The cold liquid helped calm my turbulent thoughts. I looked at Leo, who had dozed off in my arms, and whispered, "No, it's our new life that has begun." He stirred, nodding softly, then nestled closer into my arms. Yes, everything would be all right. Brittany's downfall came even faster and was far more dramatic than Henry's. She had absconded with Henry's last remaining assets, believing she could start fresh somewhere or use the money as capital to snag an even wealthier sugar daddy than Henry. But she was too naive. She thought her actions had gone unnoticed. She didn't know that in this information age, destroying someone is incredibly easy. I didn't do it myself. I simply had Miss Sarah anonymously package the damaging information I had on Brittany and send it to several influential socialites in their wealthy circles. Some of this damaging information I had incidentally collected while investigating Henry, and the rest consisted of additional details provided by enthusiastic netizens under my exposé post. This included photos of her before plastic surgery, her glorious achievements of steadily climbing the ladder through illicit relationships, and text messages showing her juggling multiple men. Those privileged, influential socialites, who detested gold diggers, had far more ruthless ways of dealing with a homewrecker like her than I did. In less than 3 days, Brittany's name was utterly ruined within that CI. Weekly. Several of her backup plans and potential sugar daddies quickly blocked her, shunning her as if she carried a plague. She became an outcast, universally reviled. Without an income, she was evicted from her upscale apartment and forced to rent in a rundown neighborhood. Her beauty, which she had prided herself on, quickly withered under the heavy burden of life. I heard she was even publicly evicted by her landlord for being unable to pay rent, her belongings strewn everywhere. As for Henry, after being released from the detention center, he learned that Brittany had stolen his last bit of savings. He was so enraged he coughed up a mouthful of blood on the spot. He frantically searched for Brittany, vowing to make her pay. The two who were once inseparable lovers were now sworn enemies. Their chance encounter happened on a drizzly evening, in a dirty, chaotic back alley. Henry found Brittany eating cheap hot pot at a street food vendor. There was no warmth of a long-awaited reunion, only the intense animosity of rivals meeting face to face. According to the video footage captured by a passerby, the two first hurled accusations and insults at each other, then devolved into a physical fight. Henry grabbed Brittany's hair and slammed her head against the wall. Brittany, in turn, used her long nails, adorned with expensive manicures, to scratch bloody marks across Henry's face. The scene was as ugly as a common street fight. Ultimately, both were reported by bystanders and taken to the police station. The video of the scumbag and mistress street brawl quickly went viral online. Its views even surpassed any previous news about them. People commented and shared it like a joke. Ha 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 ha, best drama of the year. Should be made into a series. If only they'd known this would happen, why bother in the first place? They deserved it. I saw this news in my new office. Using the unexpected inheritance from his father, I leased a small office and registered a IA and communications company, planning to pursue some educational projects that interested me. Watching the two disheveled, grotesque figures in the video, I felt no ripple of emotion in my heart. Only irony. Utterly ridiculous. Even more ironic, after the street brawl, Henry, feeling depressed, drowned his sorrows in alcohol. On his way home, he was caught driving under the influence. All his past and present transgressions were being accounted for. What awaited him was more severe legal punishment and an enormous fine he was utterly incapable of paying. When Sarah called to tell me this news, her voice carried a hint of emotion. Truly, while one might survive misfortunes brought by fate, one cannot escape the consequences of one's own actions. I looked at the clear sky outside and said blandly, he merely paid the price he deserved for his choices. Ultimately, Henry was sentenced to 3 years in prison, with multiple charges leading to a combined sentence for DUI and his previous financial offenses. Eleanor completely broke down after hearing this news. She called me countless times, but I answered none of them. Later, she even came downstairs from my office and threw a dramatic scene, wailing loudly, claiming that I, this cold-hearted and malicious woman, had ruined her son and demanding I give her son back. I had the security guards escort her out and asked Miss Sarah to send her a cease and desist letter. Since then, she never reappeared. Life finally seemed to be settling into peace. But fate always enjoyed dropping a bombshell when least expected. William suddenly fell gravely ill. Late-stage liver cancer, and by the time it was discovered, it was beyond medical help. When I received Eleanor's call, I hesitated for a long time. To be honest, I felt no lingering affection for anyone in the Chin family. But in the 7 years I was married into the Chin family, he was the only one who had ever shown me a touch of warmth. He would frown and say, "That's enough, keep quiet. Sophia has done well enough." Whenever Eleanor would find fault with me again, he would secretly slip me a cash gift on my birthday, telling me to buy myself new clothes. Although, his words held little weight in the face of his domineering wife and spoiled son. But those small acts of kindness were incredibly precious to me in that cold home. Ultimately, I still took Leo and went to the hospital. The hospital room was filled with the heavy scent of disinfectant. William lay in the hospital bed, the once tall man now reduced to skin and bones. Seeing in me, a flicker of light appeared in his clouded eyes. He struggled to sit up, but I gently pressed him back down. "Dad, please don't move, just rest comfortably." My voice choked up a little. He squeezed my hand, then looked at Leo, his lips moving as if to speak, but no sound came out due to his weakness. Leo was very understanding. He leaned on the side of the bed and whispered, "Grandpa, you have to get better quickly. Leo still wants you to teach me how to play chess." A stream of cloudy tears trickled from William's eyes. Eleanor sat nearby, her face cold and silent. After returning from the hospital, my mood remained heavy. 3 days later, the sad news came: William passed away. At the funeral, I saw many relatives from the Chin family. Their gazes held complex emotions, some sympathy, some disdain, but mostly a gloating detachment. I paid them no mind. I simply and quietly saw the old man off on his final journey. The real storm, however, erupted at the will reading after the funeral. William's lawyer, in front of all the Chen family relatives, opened the will that had been prepared long ago. As the lawyer read out the contents of the will, the entire room fell into a deathly silence. Everyone was stunned. Because had bequeathed the largest portion of his estate, a downtown property valued at nearly $10 million, and the founding stock he held in the company, all to me, and my son, Leo. But his wife, Eleanor, and his biological son, Henry, who was serving time in prison, only received some savings and an old house in their hometown. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. It was Eleanor's shrill scream that first broke the silence. She rushed forward like a madwoman, trying to snatch the will from the lawyer's hand. The old man must have lost his mind. How could he give his assets to an outsider, to a vicious woman who ruined his son's life? The lawyer calmly pushed Eleanor away, securing the will, and said righteously, "Ms. Eleanor, please calm down. This will was personally signed by Mr. Henry while he was of sound mind, witnessed by multiple staff members from our notary public office, and carries full legal authority. As for why Mr. Henry chose this distribution," the lawyer glanced at Eleanor's pale face, then turned his gaze to me, a hint of respect in his voice. "Mr. Henry made a specific declaration in the will." He cleared his throat and read aloud, "My son, Henry, is of poor character, ill-intentioned, and unfit for responsibility. My wife, Ms. Eleanor, is overly doting, unreasonable, and equally unsuitable. My family has wronged my daughter-in-law, Sophia, immensely. She worked tirelessly without complaint for this family for 7 years, only to be met with heartless betrayal. I feel profound sorrow and regret. After I am gone, only by entrusting the family assets to Sophia can I ensure my grandson, Leo, will live comfortably and grow up healthy. I hope Sophia, for my sake, will treat my grandson kindly and help him become an honest, good man. If so, I can rest in peace." The lawyer's voice echoed in the room. The entire world fell silent. Eleanor collapsed to the floor, her face ashen. And I, standing still, was already in tears. I had never imagined that the quiet old man held such clarity of mind. He knew everything. He was simply powerless to change it. The lawyer handed me a manila envelope. "Miss Sophia, this is what Mr. Henry left for you. He said you must open it yourself." My hands trembling, I opened the paper bag. Inside were a letter and an old photo album. The letter was in William's handwriting, strong and vigorous, yet with a slight tremor. "Sophia, by the time you read this letter, Dad should already be gone. Don't be sad, death is the ultimate certainty for all humans. I lived a rather pathetic life. I failed to manage my wife, and I failed to raise my son properly, causing you so much grief. Dad truly let you down. That scoundrel Henry isn't worth your tears. Leaving him was the best decision you ever made. Dad doesn't have much to leave you. Consider these family assets my compensation to you and the child for that scoundrel. Don't refuse, you deserve this." The photo album contains pictures of our family from when you first joined us. We all smiled so happily back then. It's a shame we can't go back. From now on, live well with Leo. Find someone who genuinely cares for you, and don't compromise your happiness again. On the letter, a few smudged ink spots appeared, whether from tears or water, I couldn't tell. I could no longer control myself. I knelt down, clutching the manila envelope, and sobbed uncontrollably. For the innocent, radiant self I once was, and for this belated yet incredibly precious understanding and validation, I decided to start anew. Later, I followed Ms. Sarah's advice and sold all the shares at the optimal time, converting them into a substantial sum of money. This money became the startup capital for my business. My company officially began to thrive. I invited Ms. Sarah to be our company's perennial legal counsel. She readily agreed. With her professional guidance, my career path became exceptionally smooth. Leo also transferred to the best international school in the city. The new environment, new teachers, and new classmates quickly helped him move past his previous unpleasant experiences. His personality grew increasingly cheerful, and his face brightened with more smiles. Every weekend, I would take him to various museums, science centers, or go camping and hiking in the countryside. I tried my best to fill the void of his missing father's love with my own affection. On a day of remembrance, I took Leo to visit his grandfather's grave. In the photo on the tombstone, William smiled kindly. I gently placed a bouquet of white lilies before the grave. "Dad, we've come to see you. Leo and I are both doing well now. The company has started generating profit, and Leo is adapting well to his new school and has made many good friends. Thank you. Thank you for everything you did for us. Don't worry, I will raise Leo to be an honest, kind, and responsible young man. I won't let him follow his father's path. I prattled on, as if he were still by my side, listening quietly. Leo, imitating me, also faced the tombstone and said in his sweet, childlike voice, "Grandpa, I miss you. Mom says you're a star in the sky, protecting us." "Thank you, Grandpa." A gust of wind swept through, rustling the pine and cypress trees before the grave, a sound like an echo to our words. I held Leo's hand, a sense of serenity filling my heart. On the way home, I received a letter passed on by the property management. The handwriting on the envelope was shaky and distorted. I recognized it as Henry's at a glance. I didn't even need to open it to know what it would say. Nothing but remorse, apologies, and pleas for forgiveness. Expressionless, I tore the letter into tiny pieces and tossed it into a trash can by the road. "Henry, you and I belong to two entirely different worlds now. Your despair, your repentance, what do they have to do with me? My life will not stop for you for another second. Time is the best healer and the sharpest sculptor." 2 years later, my company had made a name for itself in the educational technology sector. An app we developed for introductory programming for teenagers achieved tremendous success. With over 10 million users, I transformed from an unknown entrepreneur into a rising star entrepreneur and successful female CEO, sought after by the media. I began to frequently attend various business forums and summits, sitting and engaging in high-level discussions with industry titans I once only saw in business magazines. I was no longer Sophia, the housewife whose life revolved around her kitchen, husband, and child. I was Sophia, founder of Starlight. Leo had also grown quite a bit, becoming a young teenager. He would bring me a warm glass of milk when I worked late. He would guard the television when I was interviewed, proudly telling his visiting classmates, "Look, that's my mom." On day, he would use the allowance he had saved for a long time to buy me a carnation. Our mother-son relationship was closer than ever. We were mother and son, but also each other's best friend. As my career became more successful, some excellent suitors naturally appeared. There was a gentle university professor, a young and accomplished business elite, and an artist who fell in love with me at first sight. They were all good men, but I ultimately politely declined all of them. "I'm sorry, my focus is solely on my career and my child right now." This wasn't a superficial excuse, but the truest voice of my heart. After enduring a deeply scarred marriage, I had shed my unrealistic fantasies about love, becoming more clear-headed and pragmatic. I no longer believed in ephemeral romance. Instead, I turned my gaze to the wider world. I became even more convinced that the career firmly in my hands and the child by my side were the most solid foundations in life. The strength and courage they gave me were enough to carry me through every season of the future. As for love, perhaps it would quietly arrive at some unexpected moment. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your perspectives, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.